Right. Hello, everyone. I am Phil Saunders, a British Jew who now lives in Israel, right next to the Green Line, and chairman of an organization named Challenge that promotes conflict transformation in the Israeli-Palestinian arena. And today I'm excited to be interviewing Mr. Josef Avesar, the founder of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. The reason I say that I'm excited is because I myself am a strong believer in federal solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So let me start by asking you, Josef, how are you today? And how do you feel about this deal to end the 2-year war?
I'm fine. I am a little perplexed about this deal, and I'll tell you why. All of a sudden, Israel and Hamas agreed on certain things, exchange of prisoners, exchange of hostages, pullback, etc. And it seems like the agreement is working out. Seems like it. So it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, there is trust between Israel and Hamas. And if there is trust between Israel and Hamas after so many casualties and so much violence and suffering for the people of Gaza and Israel, the question is, why was there not agreement before all of this suffering? Why was it necessary to have so much death and destruction? I mean, tremendous amount. And then now we have trust and everything is, I'm not saying everything is okay, but they were able to reach an agreement and seem to comply with that agreement. Why didn't they have agreements before to prevent all of this to begin with?
Okay. Well, is it possible that there still isn't trust and it's just external actors have got together to force a settlement?
Yeah, it is possible. It is possible. But those external forces were there before.
Yeah.
These are not newly created forces. Why is it necessary to have so much death and destruction for these external or internal, whatever forces took place? Why was it necessary to have them use their pressure to reach an agreement? Why couldn't they do it before? Where
Okay,
were they?
Yeah, it seems to me that there is a fundamental lack of frameworks for Israelis and Palestinians to get to know each other and to cooperate together on building a future. And that, as I understand it, is exactly what the IPC is seeking to address. And so my next question is, you're a lawyer by profession. What motivated you to found the IPC?
Look, I started to look at this objectively. You know, I grew up in Israel. I was a Zionist, and in Israel, I'm sure you know, almost everyone is a Zionist because that's what we were born with and part of. But once you look at it objectively, honestly, you realize that our side, the Israeli side, was not the good guys here. We were not the good guys from the beginning. But yet, The Israelis are there, they exist. They are at least 7 or 7.5 million Jews that are there, and probably the same number of Palestinians are there. And I thought about it. What would be the reasonable resolution at this time to avoid the suffering? And by the way, Phil, to prevent the need for external forces to come in and put pressure, why is it necessary to have external forces? Are we incapable of having normal relations without external forces? And the answer to at this point, yes, the Israelis and the Palestinians are incapable. They're incapable of living normal lives, and the need to have external forces is required based on the terrible existence that Israelis and Palestinians have at this time. But Israelis and Palestinians are capable of resolving issues themselves. They are sophisticated people. They are, in my opinion, if we bring it down to it, and if they meet and have a honest, fair conversation in a legitimate government, they will be able to resolve the issues. We don't need external forces. External forces have their own interests, by the way.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think the fundamental lack is that we here on the ground don't know how to engage with each other positively. There aren't the frameworks or the understanding of each other. And so that's where I see the great potential for the IPC to bring us together in a working environment. So let me just make sure I understand what the IPC is. If I summarized it very succinctly as a platform for joint Israeli-Palestinian governance with a strong constitution and clear rules for decision making, is that in a nutshell, or am I missing something else that's very important to the setup?
I don't like the word platform. I'm not sure why, but it's not. It will be a government eventually. It will be. I think that's at the end of the day, that's what will happen. It would be a legitimate government, not a second-class government. So the word platform bothers me because it implies some sort of less than a government. I think it should be a government, a legitimate government, not a second-class government, really a first-class government that would be a legitimate government for the people of Israel and Palestine together, based on a constitution, based on equality, separation between government and religion. We're not calling for the dismantlement of the Israeli or the Palestinian governments, but we are calling for the creation of a federal government that will be in competition with the Israeli and the Palestinian governments. And in my opinion, even though it gives a veto power to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments, so it's kind of like competing with both hands tied behind your back, it will win the competition because it will win the hearts and minds of the Palestinian and the Israeli people eventually when they have a chance to look into it.
Okay, thank you for that correction. And okay, now, you said you are willing to have me ask you tough questions, direct questions, and I really appreciate that. So, okay, I now have a list of such questions. So, going to dive into them. And okay, be very interesting to see where the conversation goes. Okay, so the first one is, does the IPC require that Israelis and Palestinians will start to think and behave as one people? Or can it still work if we retain our separate identities as two distinct peoples?
It can maintain as two distinct people. Uh, the federal government is really a mechanism for peace. We have in the United States, we have 50 states, not 50 states. And they all have their own distinct identity. But they all have distinct governments, by the way. Not only do they have a governor, they have a constitution. We have 50 constitutions in the United States of America. And in addition, we have a federal constitution. We have over 100 houses of legislation, in addition to the federal. So it's really it's possible, and they should maintain their own distinct identity. This is why many Palestinians support this idea, because they say, well, we don't want to have a Israeli identity. You see that in Israeli Palestinians. They want to have their own identities, but they want to live in peace with the Israelis.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned the government system in America, and as I understand it, that's referred to as a federation. However, the IPC names itself a confederation. Is the reason it's called a confederation the fact that it can accommodate two peoples, as opposed to in the USA, it is notionally one people? And so is that the reason you call it a confederation? Or is it that, as you mentioned, it coexists with the other existing governments in this land? What's the reason to call it a confederation rather than a federation?
We are calling it both confederation and federation. And people have pointed out, you gotta decide, is it a confederation or is it a federation? And we came to the conclusion that we don't live by definitions. We expand definitions. So these are really technical distinctions. We are speaking about the people of Israel and Palestine. Now, in the future, it could grow into, and it should grow into all the other countries. It would be marvelous. But to tell you that it was called confederation because of the reasons that you gave, when I conceived of that idea, that was the first word that came to my mind, rather than thinking deeply about the distinction between confederation and federation.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, that clarifies. So, next question is, you mentioned that the IPC will coexist with the existing Israeli and Palestinian governments. But you suggested that hopefully over time, it would be the most, or maybe even immediately, it would be the most successful of the governments on offer. So is part of the agenda that you would hope that in time the IPC would render the other governments obsolete?
The agenda is peace. Okay. The agenda is not to make any government obsolete, even though I think they are not successful governments. It would be up to the people of Israel and Palestine to decide whether they want to make their governments obsolete. Okay. I don't think that you need a Jewish government to have the Jews living in peace. In fact, I think the Jewish government is the problem for the Jews, not the other way around. But it will be up to the people of Israel and Palestine. Maybe in 50 years or 20 years, they may say, I mean, I hope that the federal government will win the competition and will decide, and the people of Israel and Palestine decide to dispense with their governments. That would make perfect sense if the federal government wins. But that's not the motivation. Look, when I started to think about it, I really thought about it as a technical solution, not a broad vision. I was still a Zionist when I thought about it 24 years ago. Personally, I was in an area a week before there was in Jerusalem, before there was a suicide bomber, and my family was there, and I was there a week before, and I started to think of it. There should be a solution to this. There has to be a solution to this. So I thought about it more of a technical solution rather than challenging Zionism and getting deeper into the issue of Israel, Palestine in terms of Zionism, in terms of who is right and who is wrong. I grew more and more anti-Zionist when I looked into it, but that wasn't the initial intention.
Okay, understood. So it's a pragmatic solution to
Yes, it started as a pragmatic solution, and I think it still is a pragmatic solution if we want peace. And that's a big if. That's a big if, in my opinion, because I think the Israelis mostly do not want peace. They're afraid of peace. They're afraid of peace because they're afraid that peace, and that's hidden in the question that you asked me. They are afraid that peace will harm or evaporate their identity. That's, in my opinion, that's what they are afraid of. They like the macho Sabra Israeli military winners, able to do everything under the sun, the James Bond type of Israelis. They like that identity. But they will realize, or probably have realized, that that's not possible. That's not possible. And it's not a good identity to have an identity of militarism for the rest of eternity. And people are fed up with this. People realize that you can't be James Bond all the time. James Bond can lose his legs doing his what he does, and could be harmed. So they will realize, or maybe they are already realizing, that peace is the only way. Peace is really, there's no other way. And peace and Judaism will have to compete, and has competed for years, has competed in the world. I don't know how to frame that. Maybe you can help me. In the market of ideas in the world, it does not have to compete with a gun. It has to compete intellectually. We, the Jewish people, have to try to be the best people on earth intellectually, with ideas, to do good, not to be the people that are living wars and violence. That's not a good vision for Jews. And so would the other religions have to compete and strive to be the best in the world. That's a healthy competition. That's what we need to be part of. Not to suppress our competitors with a gun for the rest of eternity.
Okay, so in order for the IPC to function successfully, does it actually require all participants to first abandon values such as Jewish values or militaristic values, or can it embrace them while they still have all of those values and yet become part of a larger collective?
Depends what the values are. You don't have to abandon your Jewish values. You don't have to abandon even your national values. But there are two parts to it. You can be a nationalistic Israeli or Palestinian, but pragmatic and vote. So you, at the end of the day, you sit there at home and you say, can I vote? Should I vote for the a parliament member? Honestly, my government hasn't been giving me peace. I have children. I have brothers and sisters. Peace is a good thing. So the first part is voting. So you can still be a nationalistic Palestinian or Israeli or even extremist, but vote. And then in order to be elected, you have to abandon your allegiance to the other political or military institutions and to swear allegiance to the federal government. You can still have your identity as a Jew, a Christian, or Muslim. You can still have strong feelings for your people, but as a parliament member or as a president or vice president, you will have to swear allegiance to the Constitution of the federal government.
Excellent. So, yeah, in your simulations, you at the beginning require people to accept the Constitution in order to then be able to participate in subsequent votes. But you don't ask them to abandon any other values or whatever. So that is the way it would be. The people, as long as they can sign up to the Constitution of the IPC, then they can be a part of it, even while they retain, for the
Yeah.
time being, other values. Okay, that's good. Okay, so next question. In coexisting with the existing Israeli and Palestinian governments, the IPC grants a veto to them in areas where they need to be included in order to be able to implement legislation. Is there a danger that in practice the IPC could suffer a lot of veto stalemates where it's attempting to get legislation passed and one or possibly both sides veto it?
Yeah, there is a danger. There's no question there is a danger. Well, first of all, I think that the only way for a federal government in Israel Palestine to exist and to be accepted by the people of Israel and Palestine is to give a veto power to their government, because the veto power gives those governments a safety valve and it gives the people themselves a safety valve. So yes, there is a danger that the separate Israeli or Palestinian governments will veto legislation. But they will do that at their own risk, because remember, the federal government will be Palestinians and Israelis together as equal, legitimately elected by the people of Israel and Palestine. So as we have demonstrated in the simulations, when they touch upon an issue that neither the Israeli nor the Palestinian government has ever been able to touch, they will have they accepted the Constitution. The parliament accepted the Constitution. What does it mean? It accepted that it has to have 55% of the Palestinian parliament members, 55% of the Israeli parliament members agreeing on the same legislation. That's pretty difficult to reach. Now, once they do reach that consensus, Israelis and Palestinians together in the parliament, it would be very difficult for the Israeli and the Palestinian government to veto that legislation if it benefits the people of Israel and Palestine together. They will lose political legitimacy by vetoing it. Because, look, up to now, we had the Israelis and the Palestinians against each other and no other formula, no other entity that has political power in Israel-Palestine. Here we have, we will have federal government with political power elected by the people of Israel and Palestine, with parliament that argued with each other for I don't know how long and reached a consensus. And if the consensus has been reached, that means it makes sense. It's what we call threading the needle. If it was able to thread the needle, it will be very hard for the Israeli and the Palestinian government to say, well, we're just going to veto this and go on with our lives the way it was up to now. They will lose political legitimacy, not only within their own people, but internationally.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful. Okay, so you have conducted an enormous number of simulations across the years with an amazing variety of very illustrious guest speakers. And I'm intrigued to know, how do you get connected to all these extraordinary people, and what criteria do you use for choosing who's suitable for being a guest speaker on these simulations?
There is no criteria. I will invite any person, regardless of his political views. Whether they are so-called pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. And the secret is that they don't look into it before they come into the simulation. They think that it is a discussion about Israel-Palestine. And they think that they're going to be speaking their points of views, and that's it. So they're willing to come, some of them, not all, mostly because they don't know what to expect. They think it's something else. They think it's something else. And then when they are presented with a press escape or double click. Okay. And then when they are presented with a constitution, with a parliament, it's too late for them to escape. They're stuck. And pretty much they all say the exact same thing. Well, yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not practical. It's not going to happen. And I try to be put their, hold their feet to the fire and say, okay, you're not being asked if it's practical or not, because you don't really have the experience or the expertise to know if it's going to happen or not. We are showing them the Constitution. We are showing him legislation and say, okay, based on what you actually see on the screen, do you object to it? Do you think there should be objected? Do you think it's not practical? And they all go, no, it's a good idea. The Constitution is good. Everything is a good idea, but it's not practical. And that's encouraging to me. That's encouraging because I realize that that they don't have any other vision other than the vision that was inculcated upon them and us for years. So I think that our vision is a good vision. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. You answered half of the question, but the other half of the question is, how on earth do you gain access to all these amazing people? Do you have some fantastic network, or do you find their emails somehow, or do you hang outside their offices and jump on them when they come out?
No, I don't go to their offices and jump on them. I write them and I call them and I write emails and letters and call them nonstop for years, nonstop. I mean, that's the secret. You just continue to harass them as much as you can until they respond. And many do not respond. Many do not respond. I can't tell you. Probably, by the way, the response now after October 7 has become a lot better because they realize that there has to be a vision for peace. But for the first few years that I have been doing it, I would say for over 1,000 emails that I sent, maybe one response. And a lot of those 1,000 emails to the same person again and again and again with different subject matters to try to intrigue their memory, sending them letters, physical letters, actual letters, so that they put the two and two together, trying to call. I have been sending emails to, what's his name from the New York Times? Maybe you can, calling him. I know his secretary's name by heart. Physical letters. She finally says, yeah, she knows who you are, but I haven't been able to get him. The idea is if I get one like significant person, up of the first tier, meaning previous prime ministers, or then it will attract audience, and we can attract the media. I haven't been able to get to the first tier of people. Second tier, yes, but not the first tier.
Okay, well, I'm sure you will in the end.
I hope so.
You seem determined.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next question, and it's a tough one. As a participant in many of your simulations, I've noticed that there are times when Americans are take many of the roles. For example, they will act as the Israeli prime minister or the Palestinian chairman. And to me, that runs the risk that the simulations may not be entirely realistic if we have Americans taking such roles rather than Israelis and Palestinians. Is that a fair criticism? Is there a danger that the decisions that are made in these simulations are not representative of the decisions that would be made by the actual Israeli and Palestinian populations?
The implication of your question is that Americans are more reasonable people, or they are more likely to be reasonable in their decision-making. And I hear that assumption all the time. Many Israelis say, we don't live with, our next door are not Swedish or Norwegian, I would have loved to have more Israeli, and by the way, we do have more Israelis and Palestinians now taking their roles, yes. But I would like to deal with the implication of your question, because it goes broader than that. People say, well, for example, when we speak about certain legislation, and a lot of Americans tell me, we are not able to reach legislation here in America. The implication is, if we are not able to reach legislation here in America, are you people in Israel, Palestine will be able? As if the American is the gold standard for reasonableness. No. I actually think that when I deal with, especially with Palestinians, they tend to be the most, on a personal level, not on, I haven't dealt with them on a political, on a governmental basis, but on a personal basis. Very reasonable, very kind people that always wants to accommodate. And that's a side point. I don't think that Americans are more reasonable, or British are more reasonable because they speak with an English accent or American accent. I think that the secret to be able to obtain legislation or to obtain a consensus is to have to define the rules of the games. The rules of the game is the Constitution. If we have Constitution that both sides agree with, that is a fair, honest Constitution, we will have Israelis and Palestinians who are willing to participate in the process and are willing to be parliament members in real life, will be as accommodating as any place in the world. The problem is in Israel, Palestine, is that we do not have an honest system. And that's what creates the friction that is incapable of being resolved. Within the Jewish state, there is not an honest system of government because there is no constitution, and whoever is in power wants to change the rules in order to continue to be in power. And those that are in the opposition are upset and want to have a fair system. But when they become in the government, they don't create a fair system. They don't ever create a constitution. So it's a inherently dishonest system within the Israeli government itself. That's why you have in Israel the judicial reform issues and the demonstrations that have been going on for years before October 7th. The Palestinians, I'm not an expert on the Palestinian government, but there is no honest system, fair, honest, secular, constitutional system in Israel, Palestine. It's really a dishonest relations all over the place in Israel, Palestine. And if we create an honest, and I believe the Constitution is as honest as it could be, well, just to have a constitution, to have people accepting it, and we have Palestinians and Israelis who are accepting it, who do not, who have nothing bad to say about them, who have not challenged them.
Okay.
If we have that system, we will have reasonable results in Palestine.
Okay, thank you. And I have to say, I really like the IPC's constitution. And as I said at the start, I am a big believer in federal solutions to this very long-lasting conflict. Despite my tough questions, I am proud to say that I am a supporter of the IPC. So now, next tough question. You mentioned that you were a Zionist when you originally founded the IPC, and you said later in this interview that you are now actually anti-Zionist. Is the IPC itself definitively anti-Zionist?
No, I am not. The Constitution is the federal government is a system for the people of Israel and Palestine to resolve conflict. It has nothing to do with Zionism or anti-Zionism. And even if you think so, at the end of the day, the Israelis will have to make peace with anti-Zionists. Most Palestinians are anti-Zionist. So, but the federal government, in fact, the Constitution contradict my own personal views. My personal views are that there has to be one government, secular, for the whole area, without the Palestinian government, one secular democratic government that's separate between religion and government. But that's my personal views. But the IPC is more of a practical view rather than reflection of my personal views. My personal views are not practical in Israel-Palestine because you have a very strong Jewish Zionist government that would see any attempt to dismantle the Israeli government as maybe as a crime even. So definitely as a subversive organization. So the IPC does not reflect my personal views. The IPC, in a way, contradicts my own personal views or is not completely aligned with my personal views. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for clarifying that. It was very important.
Yeah.
And just as a follow-up, are you anti-religious? And is the IPC anti-religious in any way?
No, just to the contrary. First of all, I am Jewish. I raised my children. I was raised as Jewish. I raised my children as Jewish. We celebrate the Jewish holidays. I see distinction or differences between Judaism and Zionism. The IPC, in fact, calls for the separation between religion and government. It is not anti-religion at all. In fact, it would probably facilitate the practice of religion for all religions in the area of Israel-Palestine a lot better than the Israeli the Israeli government does at this time. A lot better. People will be able to practice their religion with dignity, without the need to be monitored by police officers. So there is a distinction, total distinction between religion and the IPC.
Okay, thank you very much. That's an excellent answer and definitely clarifies that. Okay, so we're now at the last question on my list. You mentioned that many of your guest speakers have questioned the viability, the practicability of the IPC. So my final question is, if we want to make it happen and we want to make it real, how do we turn it into reality? Who do we need to get on board?
It will become a reality, in my opinion, when it gets notoriety, when the idea would get notoriety, when we write about it look, you know about the Me Too movement.
Mhm.
The Me Too movement started worldwide with an article in the New Yorker magazine. One article about sexual harassment brought more articles worldwide. And people, especially women, said, that happened to me too. They identified with it was all, sexual harassment has been going on for thousands of years. But one article in the New York Times created the Me Too movement, or the violence in Israel and Palestine has been going on for over 100 years, and it accelerated tremendously in the last 2 years. If we have an honest article about solution, honest article, not the articles that designed to promote the two-state solution or to promote one solution over another, just an honest article. And if we have a chance to present this idea in a in an open way and subsequently develop articles about it in major publications around the world, then it will become a reality. It's not a question of money, it's a question of awareness. And I have conducted so many simulations, and I can tell you that there is really the only thing that you mentioned now, the viability, is the only opposition to it. So what does it say about our society that has a good option to save people's life and to give peace, but to say, well, no, we're going to resort to our way of life of killing each other because the other option is not viable. The other option, what we are talking about, would cost somewhere around $100 million, in my opinion. We're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars killing each other. People are losing their family, their children's lives, their husbands, their wives. Young people are losing their legs. They're not going to be able to walk. They're not going to be able to climb a ladder. They're not going to be able to kick a ball. They're not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to be attractive to women or men. And to say, well, it's just not viable, and let's continue with this, that to me is an insult. It's a total insult to any thinking intellectual person or not intellectual person. It's an insult. We have an obligation to make this come a reality. And I think it will become a reality. If I remember his name, Tom Friedman, if he will have the guts to come to our simulation, if he will have the guts, and I am calling upon him, to do that. If he will have the guts to come to our simulation, and if he has the decency and the honesty to write about it, that could make a huge change. If the Prime Minister of Britain, what's his name, that is
Keir
now
Starmer.
who?
Keir Starmer.
No, the previous one that showed interest. The one that is being proposed to be the governor of Gaza now.
Tony Blair.
Tony Blair. Okay. Regardless of his point of view, if he comes in and have and his assistant did contact us because I guess they got tired of the letters that they're getting we sent to his office. And he was, a lot of these people, they say, we are interested, but this is not the right time. So a month later, I write another email. Is this the right time? They don't respond. And then a year later, I write, is this the right time? Well, not quite. If they have the guts, the honesty to come and participate in a 2-hour simulation on Zoom, it will bring a tremendous amount of audience, and it would intrigue people to think about it. And I think we have an obligation to do so. We have an obligation. We can't just go on with this nonsense that is being shoved up our throat. No.
Okay, thank you. And based on your track record, I have every confidence that you will, in the end, succeed in getting them on the simulations. And if I understand you correctly, you're saying effectively that we need to reach a critical mass of awareness so that then it will take off.
Yes. If we reach a critical mass of awareness, and this Zoom will help. I mean, everything will help. I write articles, whatever I can. So, but I want to thank you so much, Phil. You've been coming to a lot of our simulations and asking a lot of good questions. And I guess I'm going to be meeting you in November.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you again. And
yeah.
I really enjoy your simulations, and I've really enjoyed this opportunity. I've been able to ask you many questions that I've been longing to ask you, and today is the opportunity. So I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too.
All right. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you in less than a month, I guess.
Absolutely. See you then.
All right. Thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you. Bye
Let
for
me
now.
stop the recording. Yeah.